The best way to describe this is in the words of the Bible, B'ni b'chori Yisrael, my firstborn child, O Israel. You know, in a family, parents sometimes, I'd say often, would turn to the oldest child and give special responsibilities and again and again say to the oldest child, now you should set an example for your siblings, and I've got certain tasks for you to do because you're the one who should be the added role model within the family. That is what it means to be God's chosen people. We are his firstborn child. And as a result, throughout history, Hashem has created scenarios through which, whether we like it or not, the eyes of the world are on the Jewish people. And ever since 1948, the eyes of the world are continuously on the state of Israel. It's in order that through our strong Jewish identity, we can contribute to the world around us. And a very good example of the fusion of our particular and universal aspirations is eco-synagogue, another area in which I'd like to congratulate the board. Nothing can be more Jewish than a shul. Nothing can be more global than the threat of climate change. But you've merged them together through the concept of eco-synagogue, so that utilizing our Jewish synagogues as a platform, we are seeking to address climate change because we have a global responsibility, not just for everybody living on earth at this time, but indeed for all people who will be living on this earth for all time to come. In order to strengthen our Jewish identity, I believe strongly in maintaining and creating further entry points. Now, some of the entry points to a strong Jewish identity are natural and well known. The best of all examples is a Jewish home, and a child enters at birth. And indeed, I believe it's a truism that the stronger the Jewish identity in one's home, the better are the chances for a committed Jewish life. There are no guarantees in our challenging world, but certainly we should never underestimate the power and importance of a loving, caring, and enthusiastic Jewish environment within our homes. And then, of course, there are other major entry points, our synagogues, our schools, our youth movements, and so on. But sometimes there are entry points which are overlooked, and I'll give you two: sport and Israel. In 2 days' time, we will see the opening of the 21st Maccabiah Games in Israel. I don't know if you know, this is the second largest sporting event in the world. We will have over 10,000 athletes from 80 countries competing in 40 sports. Soon after I became chief rabbi, I was approached by the heads of the Maccabiah. They came to see me in my home in London. And this was in my capacity as chief rabbi of the Commonwealth, because they identified for me Commonwealth countries which do not participate in the Maccabiah, and they sought my assistance to encourage the Jewish communities in those countries to participate. And why are they so keen? They gave me a wonderful statistic. 27% of the participants in the Maccabiah Games make Aliyah within 5 to 10 years. What that means is, through playing sport in a Jewish context, their Jewish identity is strengthened. Through being proud competitors at a sporting event in Israel, having that thrill of the unity of the Jewish people through sport in the Jewish state, we see how Israel itself is an entry point. Of course, Baruch Hashem, the greatest gift that God has given to our people in the past 2 millennia has been Medinat Yisrael. And I'm a proud Zionist, and I'm sure you all are. And we must support Israel passionately and enthusiastically. And we recognize Israel is not just a blessing for being there as a Jewish country. It also serves to strengthen Jewish identity. And so together, we need to collaborate to maintain and to create added entry points to strengthen our Jewish identity. Now on to my second A, which is anti-Semitism. It is lamentable. It is so sad that anti-Semitism needs to be a priority of ours, that anti-Semitism is a priority of the board, and it must be. We have no choice. We have a responsibility. And in this regard, again, I congratulate you for representations which are made at the highest level, and for everything that you are doing in terms of prevention and protection for our Jewish community during exceptionally challenging times. In 1942, the Council of Christians and Jews was formed. It was the first formal interfaith body ever created. It was created in the midst of the Holocaust by Chief Rabbi Joseph Hertz and by the Archbishop of Canterbury at the time, Archbishop Temple. And so interfaith was a direct result of anti-Semitism. And we engage in interfaith because of the beauty of working together harmoniously with our sister faiths. And in addition, it is a strong tool through which we can combat anti-Semitism. And again, I'm aware of the outstanding work that the board does within this area. And I see a great opportunity within one particular field of interfaith activity right now. We have been world leaders here in Britain when it comes to interfaith activity between Jews and Christians and Jews and many other faiths. We have for some time had some significant challenges with regard to dialogue with and our relationship with Muslims. But ever since the Abraham Accords were established 2 years ago, we now have a new dialogue framework within which I believe we can achieve an enormous amount. You'd be aware of events in London during the past week. There will be many more significant events here, around the world, and particularly in the Middle East. The window of opportunity has been given to us, and I sincerely hope that in addition to the stronger relations that have been forged between Israel and some Arab countries, that will provide an added platform for meaningful and harmonious Jewish-Muslim relations. I understand from your agenda for today that Sally Seeley of the United Kingdom Holocaust Memorial Foundation will be fielding some of your questions. I am proud to be a member of the UKHMF and have been fully in the loop at every single stage of the development of the wonderful initiative, which was created by the UK government with full cross-party support ever since the idea was launched in 2014. The location is an inspirational one. There are currently some legal challenges. I am hopeful that we will be able to get over them. And I have no doubt whatsoever that within a matter of just a few years, please God, the UK will have a world-class, iconic, outstanding Holocaust Learning Center and Memorial in a most wonderful location, as a result of which the British public will be able continuously to recall the horrors of the Holocaust and to be able to implement the lessons of the Holocaust for the sake of the future peace and harmony of British society. Now on to my third A, which is apathy. The first two, assimilation and anti-Semitism, are the obvious ones. Apathy is the hidden threat to our Jewish community. And we are seeing apathy at every level within every sector. And our COVID experiences, unfortunately, have enabled apathy to be all the more of a deep problem for us. So we can't just presume that everything will continue swimmingly along. And as a result, within our Jewish communities, we need to up our game. We need to guarantee that we can compete with the most compelling and exciting opportunities, often in the palm of people's hands that are presented to them. And we are blessed because we have the greatest product on earth. It is the Torah. It is our authentic Jewish way of life, authored by Almighty God himself and relevant throughout all ages. Our task is to guarantee that our Jewish tradition should continue to be appealing to all people. And in this regard, just to give you an example, my office together with the United Synagogue created what we call Project Welcome. As we're emerging now from the pandemic, we can't just presume that attendances will be back in shul as they previously were. In fact, our aspirations must be to increase on attendance of what we had pre-COVID. And so we are providing incentives and know-how and tools to all of our communities in order to ensure that hopefully we will be able to encourage people to see the beauty of their tradition. And across the board, I encourage all of our communities, organizations to do likewise. to engage in creative activity in order to combat the apathy that is there, in order to ensure that we will have vital and vibrant Jewish communities well into the future. Having shared with you my 3 A's, I now want to introduce you to a 4th A. Sorry about that, you thought it was all over. And the 4th A relates to implementation. So how are we going to do it? How are we as a community together in partnership, bringing all of our organizations together? How are we going to successfully take on assimilation, anti-Semitism, and apathy, together with all the other challenges that exist? My 4th A is argument. Argument is intended to be constructive and is intended to be positive. Just look at the Mishnah, the Gemara, the Talmud. The most essential pillar of Jewish engagement is argument. However, we differentiate in the ethics of the fathers between 2 types of argument, machloket l'shem shamayim and machloket shelo l'shem shamayim, an argument for the sake of heaven and an argument which is not for the sake of heaven. So soon after becoming chief rabbi, I made it known that no one during my tenure as chief rabbi would hear from me any public criticism of any other religious branch of Judaism. And I've kept to that promise. And I'm grateful to my colleagues within various Jewish religious denominations for respecting that as well. The example I've been giving all the time, and I'm sure you've heard it from me before, is a cricketing analogy. We need to be batters and not bowlers. Wherever we are within the Jewish community, whatever our passion is, whatever it is we're standing for, let's be batters. Let's score runs, sometimes 4s, halavai 6s, for our cause. Let's be champions of what we believe in. Let's try and persuade others of the virtues of our point of view. But let us never become bowlers, trying to bowl others out, trying to destroy them, trying to demonize them. Let's go for the ball and not for the man or the woman. That's what a machloket l'shem shamayim is about. To engage in constructive, sometimes fierce argument, but in a menschlich way. That must be surely the only way forward in all segments of our community. Rav Kook was very inspirational when speaking about the concept of unity. The first chief rabbi of the Holy Land, we say of the Holy Land because he became chief rabbi before the declaration of the state. He would use the analogy of a symphony orchestra in which you have different instruments, each making the unique sound, and under the baton of the conductor, they produce perfect harmony. And this is how he described a healthy society. One in which under the baton of human coexistence, let us respect the different points of view and let us act harmoniously while playing our tune enthusiastically. Let us create a harmonious entity with unity and not uniformity. And let me conclude now with my favorite Torah. And because it's my favorite, I'll be surprised if you haven't heard it from me before, but I preach it all the time. It's the origin of the Hebrew word for hand. Why is hand in Hebrew a yad? Well, the answer is that in a hand, you've got 14 joints, 3 in each finger and 2 in the thumb. And 14 in Hebrew lettering is yud daled, spelling the word yad, and that's why hand is yad. And when you have 2 people and they hold hands or they shake hands, you've got yad and yad. And that's why the Hebrew word for a friend is a yedid. Yud daled. That's the origin of the word yedid. And yedid in turn is 14 plus 14, which comes to 28, which is kafchet, spelling the word koach, which is strength. The source of Jewish strength is in yedidut. You can be a friend and you can disagree on just about anything that comes your way, but you can do so in a friendly way. It is our yedidut. It is our sense of togetherness. It is our passion for Jewish unity, which gives us strength. And if there is an absence of it, the result is we are weak within and our representations are weak without. So thank you so much, all of you, for being on the board, for all of your work, for our Jewish community, for and on behalf of it. A huge shakak to you and your team, to Michael and your professional team. I thank you for the partnership that you engage in with me and my office. And please God, will be able to take on assimilation and anti-Semitism and apathy, and let's do it with the right kind of arguments. God bless you all.
Chief Rabbi, I'd really like to thank you for your time today, your wise counsel. You've certainly always been there for me and for the organisation, and we are so grateful that you came to speak to us today. Thank you for all that you do and all of your support. Thank you. And you're very welcome, of course, to stay, or else Michael will show you.
Thank you for your kind invitation. I'm on my way to Manchester now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Deputies, we are also very fortunate this morning to be joined by Sally Seeley. She is the head of the Secretariat for the UK Holocaust Memorial Foundation. She does a huge amount of work for the community and also a huge amount with Lord Pickles. So I want to thank Sally for coming to us on a Sunday morning. She's going to speak for 10 minutes and she's happy to answer a few questions. So we do have a full agenda. So I hope that you'll understand she may not be able to answer lots and lots of questions, but she'll do her best. Thank you again, Sally. So over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Especially thank you, Marie, all the deputies, everybody who's online and here. I feel a bit sort of nervous following the Chief Rabbi, but I'll do my best. And excuse me, I do have a frog in my throat, but I don't have COVID, and just in case anybody's worried, I'm okay. I think the first thing just to say is that the government remains fully committed to the building of the Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre in Victoria Tower Gardens. I'm sure most of you have read that we have had a legal challenge, and we are currently in court awaiting the outcome of that challenge. But we remain, as I say, determined to build it. I just thought I would like I sort of planned my remarks around some of the things that have been raised over time about concerns about the Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre. And I think the first thing just to say is that the initiative, as the Chief Rabbi said, has cross-party support. It is also it's also part of, although you may not think that is a great thing, but it's also part of the current government's manifesto. And as I've just said, we were disappointed in what the court in the court ruling, but we plan to challenge. I think I just sort of say a few things about, there have been some concerns about the cost of the memorial. And if you can all perhaps cast your mind back to when David Cameron first announced in Britain's Promise to Remember, way back in 2014, and the announcement in 2015, that the government would give £50 million to kickstart a fundraising effort. It was never suggested that the memorial would cost £50 million. It was just to kickstart it. Obviously, when that announcement was first made, we hadn't had a design competition. We hadn't chosen a design. And when that design was chosen, the government then put forward a further 25 million, which would be matched by philanthropic giving. So that is a total of around £100 million. There's also been some suggestion by people that perhaps the money could be used for something else, perhaps for Holocaust education. I think we need to be clear this is capital. And if any of us are familiar with capital, if we don't use it for the Holocaust Memorial, it will just go back to the Treasury and will not be redone to Holocaust education. That's not to say that at the moment, for example, there's been some suggestion that that we already spend a lot of money on Holocaust education. For example, Holocaust education is compulsory in the national curriculum. Secondly, it is we fund the lessons from Auschwitz from the Holocaust Educational Trust, where we have 2 students from each school in England going off to Auschwitz and come with one of their teachers. We also fund, for example, the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust to deliver the annual Holocaust Memorial Day. We fund the UCL's Holocaust Center, which basically trains teachers to teach the Holocaust in a good way, in a professional way. My own department, which is the Department of Levelling Up Community Housing and Communities, we also fund the Holocaust Educational Trust to send students, university students, to Auschwitz-Birkenau. In addition, we also fund, for example, we have partnered with the Association of Jewish Refugees on the UK Holocaust map, which maps UK sites of Holocaust memory and places relating to survivors of the Holocaust, refugees of Nazism, as well as liberators and rescuers. We fund the Wiener Library. We fund Learning from the Righteous and a specific focus on the Kitchener camps. We've made a contribution to the new Kindertransport Memorial in Harwich. We fund some work in the Haredi community to encourage them to give testimony. And over and above that, we also fund projects, for example, in Scotland, Vision Schools. We have a project in Wales. So as you can see, there's a lot, there's always more can be done. I mean, there's never enough to be done, but to be fair, we are funding Holocaust education. If I could just perhaps move on to, there's been a bit of concern about, why Victoria Tower Gardens, which, as we all know, is right next to the Houses of Parliament. I think the first thing to say is that Victoria Tower Gardens is not a royal park. It is administered by the royal parks, but it is not a royal park. It's actually owned by the government. Secondly, we are only going to be using 7.5% of the park, and we're going to be doing a lot of enhancements of the park to ensure that it's much more user-friendly. In terms of, a number of people have asked, why is it not at the Imperial War Museum? Many of you may have visited the new exhibition at the Imperial War Museum. The Imperial War Museum tells the story of the Holocaust as a whole. The UK Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre in next to the House of Parliament will tell the British story. It will look at, and it will tell an unvarnished story. There's been a bit of suggestion that this will be a very, how marvellous was Britain in winning the war. It'll be much more than that. It'll focus on what we knew, when we knew, and why we didn't do anything about what we knew. So I'll give a quick example. Everybody's obviously aware of the Kindertransport, and that was a great thing. But the most important thing is that that was arranged by the Jewish community itself. Money was raised by the Jewish community itself. And the actual visa, there was a stipulation that people had to go back at the end of the war. What people don't realize is that because we didn't allow the parents of those children to come to the UK, many of them were murdered at Mali Tostanets in just outside Minsk in Belarus. These are the kinds of stories that this memorial will tell. It will focus on the white paper that prevented immigration to Palestine and which led to the murder of thousands of Jewish people. It's going to have an unvarnished look. If we want to criticize other countries for not looking at their history and sort of only focusing, for example, on righteous amongst the nations, then we need to be honest ourselves. And we are definitely going to be taking that honest look. In terms of the exhibition, and is made up of academics like Professor Mary Fulbrook, Professor Philip Spencer, Nick Waxman, Zoe Waxman, Dr. Julie Carr, Stuart Foster, Isabel Wollaston. So we have a lot of very good advice on making sure that we don't, that we tell that we basically keep to the history. I think the final thing that I would just want to, and I'm very happy to take questions. I think the only other thing that I'd like to sort of mention is that there's been a suggestion that the building itself will tackle anti-Semitism. If it was that easy, we'd be putting buildings up everywhere to tackle anti-Semitism. It's not the building, it's actually what happens inside the building. And the exhibition will include an exhibition on anti-Semitism, past and present. It will also include a look at Jewish life. You cannot appreciate what was lost if you don't know what was there before. And so it will focus on that as well. I don't want to go on and on and on, but I'm very happy for if anybody would like to ask any questions to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have got 2 questions online, 3 questions online. So is anyone else going to consider? We've got one on the floor. Can I take the question on the floor first of all, please? We're getting a lot of questions, and I want to take them all. So I will do my best, but we've got a amount of time. And can you say your name and constituency, please, Carol?
Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley Synagogue. You mentioned, first of all, congratulations on the work you're doing. But secondly, you mentioned that Holocaust education is part of the national curriculum. Sadly, the national curriculum applies to fewer and fewer schools. What is being done to ensure that good Holocaust education is being taught in academies, independent schools, and other academic institutions that we're getting now?
Thanks, Carol. I think you're absolutely right. That's true. It's taught on the national curriculum. The anecdotal evidence that we have, and bear in mind it is anecdotal, is that most schools in the sort of academies, for example, do teach Holocaust education. They do actually follow the national curriculum, but that is anecdotal. I don't, and I know there is some surveys going on at the moment, which may give us a better answer on that. But you're absolutely right to point out that it's specifically the national curriculum. But the evidence, as I say, is that most of them do actually teach it in the history curriculum, those that follow the national curriculum, of course.
Thank you. And if you can keep your questions as brief as possible, we'll get more people that can ask questions. So the next 2 questions will be Andrew Gilbert, followed by Mary Renier-Lee. Thank you. Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew Gilbert, Reform Judaism. I hear it.
We can't really hear you, Andrew.
I'm hearing an echo every time I speak. But,
Sorry.
can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me now?
We just have the microphone off to try and dim the echo. We can hear you, but it's not as good as we'd like, but give it a try and we'll turn this.
Okay, Andrew Gilbert, Reform Judaism.
Off.
Okay, Andrew Gilbert, Reform Judaism. 2 very quick points. I'm fairly saddened by anyone questioning this project. I want to congratulate you. The people who put up the money from government, the people who raised money.
I'm really sorry, Andrew. I mean, I can't hear what you're saying. And so I imagine that other people can't also. If you could please just put the question, if you send it as a message in the chat,
online.
we will pick it up.
We can hear you. Your problem is inside the building there, not overall online.
So if not, okay. I can't. Okay. Chat doesn't work either, so I can't.
Can you hear us, Mary?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. Mary Rainey, Western Marble Arch. I think the one issue that really bothers me is so-called education. You've talked about a project in Wales, you've talked about a project in Scotland. I want to see a project in every school, in every classroom. I'll just repeat what Malala said. One child, one teacher, one book and one pen can change the world. Having projects in places isn't going to change the world or the context of anti-Semitism. And I want to see a situation Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So really what I'm saying is, can you find the funds to make sure that that education happens to every child, every young person, everybody in this community? 40% of modern children don't even know what the Holocaust is or what it stands for. Even the Z generation don't know, and we need to train everybody, and a single place is not going to help. Please, can you use your funds to make sure everybody has access to Holocaust education?
I'm very sorry. So it seems that with our microphone, with the speaker system today, doesn't seem to be working quite so well in the room. Can I ask the people who are online, who want to ask questions, if you put those in the chat? Michael, our chief executive.
Chat's not working.
Okay. The chat, I'm told, is not working.
Text me. Well, what's up? People can text me 07904.
Okay, guys, you're gonna have to take down a number. I'm so sorry about this.
The chat is presently enabled. You can use it.
Right, Michael Weaver's got his email. Could you please email a member of the board team? I don't, with respect, think it's a good idea. Right, okay, good. I'm able to tell you the chat has been activated. So I'm really sorry for everybody online. I can see Laura, Panina, I can see quite a few of you, Larry, Jonathan, Angela. We can't do all of the questions anyway, but could you put your questions in the chat, which has now been activated? And I'm only sorry, it's been enabled. So can I take a question from the room, please, Bruce?
Hello. Yes, I'm Bruce Greenberg from Northampton Hebrew Congregation. Thank you for your presentation. Do you have a projected date of completion, and when will the exhibition foundation open?
Yes, so even with our current awaiting the appeal, the completion date is 2025. So before the end of 2025, we should have with a fair wind, we should have a Holocaust Memorial and Learning Centre in Victoria Tower Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Sanders, Harrogate. Would you be good enough just to remind some of us who've forgotten the basis of the legal challenge, please?
Yes, so the legal challenge actually isn't on the planning. The legal challenge is, well, initially it was on the planning, but the actual legal challenge is on the 1900 Act. And the 1900 Act was an act which was brought about by W.H. Smith, the very W.H. Smith that you see around the town at the moment. And W.H. Smith, the reason for the act was to prevent wharfs being built along that area. He wanted to preserve that area. And the 1900 Act, and it's been sort of changed over time, but currently the 1900 Act basically says that the Victoria Tower Garden should be maintained as a public park. Our contention is, even within a Holocaust memorial in the park, taking up 7.5% of the park, it still will remain open to the public. And the government has also announced that there will be free entry, so there is no cost to people attending the memorial.
Thank you. Thank you online. I do really apologize to you. I've got some questions coming through in the chat, so if I give you a couple at a time.
Certainly.
So apologies again online. Jonathan Brody, how much would the ongoing running cost of the project be once completed, and where will this money come from? Paul Hart. What will be done to prevent vandalism and graffiti of the building due to the increase in anti-Semitism? And the last question in this section, we'll wait for more online, is Vicky Harris, do you have a contingency plan if your legal challenge fails?
Okay. Thank you for all those questions. So in terms of running costs, we are looking at between £5 and £6 million a year. And basically that will, a lot of that will be the government grant, because obviously the entry will be free. We will also be relying on some philanthropic giving, but that is the running costs. In terms of vandalism and graffiti, well, bearing in mind where it is, right next to the Houses of Parliament, opposite MI5, I suspect it's in quite a good spot to not have vandals graffitiing the place. And the last question was, do we have a plan B? Basically, we are confident we do not have a plan B. If it's not in Victoria Tower Gardens, next to the House of Parliament, because we believe that is the right place for it, because not only is it a question for those parliamentarians looking out as to where decisions can lead, bearing in mind that it was a compliant democracy in Germany that led to what happened in the Shoah, and also the fact that it's a place where it is in terms of people and decision making, and also it's at the heart of where government is. We don't have a plan B. It's there or nowhere.
Thank you. I'm just going to give you a couple more questions, but they're disappearing from the chat. I don't know if it because there's so many coming. Andrew Gilbert, first, so grateful the government is making this happen. Congratulations to those who made this happen, including former prime ministers and former leaders of the Jewish community. If community members want something else, they should take on raising the money. Laura Marks, who is the chair of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. I'd like to commend Sally and the team for their work on this. As chair of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, we, like HET, all fully support the memorial, and we urge deputies to do so. Sally, maybe you can say something about the inclusion of more recent genocides in the memorial exhibition, which I know was planned. Genocide did not end in 1945, and we need to stay aware of the dangers of genocide. Mary Renia Lee, I want to know how we can reach every pupil in every school and every adult with the full story of the Holocaust. And the last section question in this section, thank you, Sally. Can you please explain what specific guidelines teachers will be given in teaching the same? I'm concerned if some teachers have a gender opinion, I don't want to say apathy or bias. And sorry, can I just give you the last question? Panina Serrano, she wanted to ask something similar. Will there be mention of further trauma survivors have suffered from being interned in so many places, and linking this to being considerate and compassionate to refugees today and how they are treated and helped?
Thank you, Marie. Thank you for all those questions. So just to go to the question that Laura mentioned in regards to subsequent genocides, indeed, I mean, if there's the lesson from because we are even looking at subsequent genocides through the lens of the Holocaust, because if it wasn't for the Holocaust, we wouldn't have the legislation that came out at the UN around genocide and the international criminal courts. So we will definitely be looking at subsequent genocides, and obviously quite clearly the lesson of the Holocaust have not been learned, because obviously genocides continue to happen. In terms of how can we reach everybody in terms of teaching about the Holocaust, I mean, I think the issue there is that in primary school, so for example, we support the work of the Holocaust Centre up in Nottingham, which specifically has an exhibition called The Journey, which is specifically aimed at primary school pupils. I think there's a lot that the jury's out about how much one teaches in primary school about the Holocaust, and that is, and generally the curriculum is taught between ages 11 and 14. I think every effort is being made to try and teach the Holocaust at every level. In terms of specific guidelines, obviously, Holocaust Educational Trust, as well as the Centre for Holocaust Studies at UCL, are specifically focused on how you teach the Holocaust. There's also the recent guidelines on how to teach the Holocaust put out by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is an excellent guide that has been sent out to all our teachers on how to teach the Holocaust. And on the last question, absolutely, in terms of lessons learned, in terms of, you know, how we treated refugees then and how we treat refugees now. I mean, to be perfect, I don't think there's much difference, to be honest. I mean, if you think about going back, refugees were not welcome back then, and they're not necessarily welcomed now. So again, I think the Holocaust, it brings us some very, very good lessons that sometimes things don't change that much.
Thank you. I've just got some further comment. Doris Schmetterling has said, we want a brief summary of the key points made. Deputies, you will have the minutes of the meeting. We'll make sure that they're extensive. Richard Cooper wants to commend Sally and everybody involved in the project. He says, to those who object to it, I look on it as a giant Stolperstein. It rubs the faces of our fellow citizens in the face of the Shoah, and that is, to my mind, right. Last word to Angela Cohen. It took the wrong man at the right time, and in the blink of the eye, the world changed. Am I talking about 1940 or 2022? We must learn the lessons of the past to form our future. Angela Cohen, 45 Aid Society. And David Katz, your excellent presentation was software, all of which can be changed easily. The list of issues you seem to be including is incrementing on this call, he says. But I want to thank you. You've been absolutely incredible. You've taken a multitude of questions. You've given up your Sunday morning. You unstintingly are there for the Jewish community. I know how hard you work and all of the work that you do with Lord Pickles. I cannot thank Sally enough. I hope that you'll also give her a round of applause and thank Sally. We've got a few technology issues, deputies. We are really sorry about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we're just going to see if we can resolve those issues. But can you please all be back in 5 minutes, and online? I'm really, really sorry, but we're just going to see what we can do. So see you in 5 minutes, which will be 11:25. Thank you.
Hi, I'm just testing. I'm on Zoom, but I just want to test the sound in the room. Could someone let me know? No, yeah. How is the sound in the room?
I can hear you.
Fine.
It's okay for those of us who are watching on Zoom.
On Zoom, yeah. We're just going to get someone who's in the room to confirm that we can hear properly.
I should think Marie needs to do that.
Oh, I can unmute myself. This is Dory Schmetterling. Yes, I can hear everybody online very clearly. I have to say, I couldn't hear the applause. It's very odd. Are the microphones so directional? I'll just turn my video on in a second.
Okay.
I agree. I didn't hear the video, the applause.
I could hear Marie spoke. Somebody else.
Hear me in the room?
Yeah, for the applause for example, the chief rabbi. I couldn't hear anything, which is surprising.
We're just working on it now.
Okay, but I could hear Marie, and others obviously standing near microphones at the top table.
Can I just say hi, it's Denise Lester here, that it's great that we've got the chat enabled. It's really whatever the IT issues are today, the fact is if you listen on Zoom, you are disenfranchised to a degree. So this is really I've got a family commitment, which is why I'm on Zoom, but there are others, you know, obviously for other reasons, but it's great. And I think we'll have the chat in future, please.
Hi everyone, just if you could just please stay on mute just so that we can test the sound and try and sort this out, it'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you. If you could just all stay on mute. Thank you. Hi, I'm testing the sound from Zoom to in the room. Can you hear me? Just making sure that the quality is better for the next.
Yes, Lauren, I can hear you.
So is the sound better? Just testing, just testing.
Well, I can hear you, but can the people in the hall not hear
If
each
everyone
other?
on Zoom could just stay on mute, just so that we can test the sound, because we're just testing it for people in the room. Hello everyone, I'm testing the Zoom in the room. So this is just a test to make sure that the people in the room can hear the Zoom better.
hear me, and I apologise that we cannot hear. So I've been told from David Sello, I can't be heard online.
You can be heard.
I can't.
You can.
I can. I hope that I can, because I had a message that I can't. I hope that's been resolved.
I am
Anyone-
online and I can hear Marie very well at the moment.
Fine.
Marie, we could always hear you.
Oh, you can now. You've got on the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We
can I
couldn't
just
hear the
ask?
applause at the beginning, for example, which was very strange.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I just ask, has anyone got any comments, please, from the minutes of the 19th of June? Jerry Lewis.
Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue. With regret, I just want to correct a minor, I don't know how to put it, an absence of wording, which I have given previous notice. The rabbi I interviewed with connection with the demonstration outside the parliament was Rabbi Asher Grat, who said,
I really think that's not appropriate for you to name individuals. I
interviewed him, it went out on radio,
Jerry.
it's public news, and with all due respect, it's a name which was put on the record for a good reason.
We're going to move on. Thank you. It's
Can you please put it in the records?
Thank you. Your comment was noted. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Has anybody else got any comments? Thank you. Let's move on. Thank you very much. Shall we go on to the executive report? Has anybody got any comments or questions in relation to the executive report? And if you're online, please be patient, because I'm sitting talking to Michael. No comments. Thank you. The President's statement, which I've sent to you. Can we start off wishing again, Edwin, a refuah shalema? We're all thinking of you, Edwin. We're all here to give you our support. Some muzzle tops. Ella Marks on the award of her MBE, in the Jubilee Honours List. Richard Cohen on the election of his sister Barbara as Mayor of London. Darrell Loughton. Sorry, of course, it was an expansion. Loughton's fantastic, but muzzle tov. Darrell Kay on the bat mitzvah of his daughter Zara. Emma Brand on the wedding of her sister. Sylvia Hartman on the marriage of her grandson. Jeremy Michelson and his wife Jacqueline, they are celebrating their silver wedding today. Mazel tov. They can't join us today. We fully wish them great joy. And Lawrence Julius, mazel tov on the engagement of your eldest son, Dr. Adam Julius, who is engaged to Naomi Stanciu. So thank you for the mazel tovs. We have not had that long since the last president's statement, so you'll have to say that there are not that many issues as one might have if we'd had more than a month. What's very important is that 2 weeks ago, myself and Michael Uyghur and Daniel Sugarman, we met the Chief Crown Prosecutor for London, Lionel Edan, and we wanted to discuss ways that the CPS had fallen short in prosecuting anti-Semitic hate crimes. And that is something that is really of the utmost importance for our community. Because we shouldn't have private individuals having to try to prosecute. It should be a matter that the CPS take up, and they actually should be doing their job. And in fact, this really was recognised. It was a very, very warm meeting. And Mr. Idan, he wholeheartedly apologised for the incidents in question. He wanted to arrange an event with the board. He's open to consultation with the wider Jewish community. So we will be arranging an event. Amanda will take that forward. And he also has pledged to facilitate introductions so that we can organise local CPS hate crime leads and Jewish representatives around the country. So I know that Amanda and indeed Andrew Gilbert will be very, very pleased also to take that forward. So let's hope we've got a new dawn with the CPS, and that they will prosecute crimes that they should do. Of course, that is dependent on having the evidence to be able to prosecute those crimes. And we are still waiting. We have nothing further before anybody asks about the bus just before Hanukkah. I've not got any update there. Can I go straight to questions? If anybody has questions. Thank you.
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Sophie Hassanson representing ALIF. I'd like to thank the board for joining a range of communal organisations in the condemnation of the treatment of Uyghur Muslims in China and supporting the continued boycott of forced Uyghur-made products, particularly in relation to London Fashion Week. As a people with a long history of persecution, we know how positive the impact of having support from other communities can be. There has recently been news about the UK's solar energy plan and the fact that 40% of new British solar panels purchased by public bodies such as municipalities and the Defence Ministry can be linked to forced Uyghur labour. Will the President clarify that the whole British community stands against the use of Chinese Uyghur products, not only by private companies such as London Fashion Week, but also public bodies such as the Defence Ministry?
I think we've had a fantastic campaign for the Uyghurs. I don't think that the Jewish community could have done more. We've absolutely stood steadfast with the Uyghurs. We all know there's a better way than boycotts. If that's being linked to BDS, I'm not sure. I have answered the questions that were put there. We've done an absolutely campaign to be proud of. We continue to provide all of that support. So I can't say to you that the board is going to be supporting boycotts as a way of dealing with that situation. If that was your situation, if that was your question, I'm sure David might want to add some comment when he comes to his report. Do you want to clarify?
Sorry, I was talking about the new solar panel plan projects in the UK, which is being backed by the Defence Ministry and other municipalities to bring in solar panels to the UK, 40% of which are being linked now to Uyghur slave labour. And I was just wondering,
Thank you. Do you want to provide us with some more details about that, and we'll come back to you and look at it? Apologies, I understand your question, but that would be good. Thank you. Lawrence Jacobson, and I hope that we can hear you.
Good morning, Marie. It's Lawrence Jacobson, Wimbledon and District Synagogue. Please pardon my gravelly voice, as unhappily I've got COVID. I have just a few short questions and some comments to make, if I may.
I'm really sorry, we can't hear you. Any questions are going to have to go into the chat. I'm really sorry. Can you please enable the chat? Can you please, someone enable the chat? Would be really appreciated. I'm so sorry online. It's very frustrating for you. Jerry
Lewis Hampstead Synagogue. Madam President, two things. First of all, I am very concerned. I've raised this many times before, and I'm raising it again with even greater concern. We are only having 3 meetings in the last few months of the year, and I'm wondering why there's such big gaps. I know there's a Yom Tov in October. We could have a meeting on the 30th of October and on the 18th of December very easily and close down the gaps. That's point one. Point two, at the same conferences you and I attended the other day, I interviewed Rabbi Abraham Cooper. And I want his name printed, please. And in the course of the interview, I raised with him the issue. For those that don't know, he's the Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles. I raised with him the way that the Simon Wiesenthal Center last year branded the BBC as institutionally anti-Semitic. I asked him specifically what evidence he had, and also, more important, did he consult the board? He said they had their own researchers. I said, in which connection? This is all on tape. Which connection did you check that the BBC was such? Whose judgment? And second of all, he made very clear he did not in any way consult the board. This is entryism into our community, which I don't like, and we fought against as officers of the board previously. Can I have an indication of whether you bothered to see him during the conference that we both attended, which was that on freedom of religion and belief? Will you consult him or contact him subsequently? Because the damage that the Simon Wiesenthal Centre did by calling the BBC institutionally racist, I believe, was very severe and affected your meeting with Tim Davey. And my final word on this is this: if we have American organisations linked with the board, do you check them out to make sure that their views are not in conflict with the board? Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I know that Ben will come back to you on the timing of meetings when he presents his report. In relation to the Simon Wiesenthal Centre and our meeting with the BBC, no, we had not heard or met with the Simon Wiesenthal Centre. It came as a big surprise to me that during the meeting with the BBC, they suddenly said that the board of Deputies considers there's anti-Semitism in the BBC, and when we asked Fran Unsworth why she was saying that, she said it was because of the Simon Wiesenthal Centre, which obviously is an organisation that the board doesn't have anything to do with. I did not see anybody at the Freedom of Religion and Belief conference, but I'm sure if they want to get in touch with us, they will. But their comments were certainly not helpful for the BBC meeting. That's to be clear. I'll speak to Amanda and the chief executive after the meeting, and we'll take that offline. Thank you. I really want to try and see what we can do.
Janet Tressman, she should text, put it on the chat.
Right, Janet Tressman, can you put your questions on chat? I'm going to do my
Richard Cooper.
And Richard Cooper. I'm really so sorry, everybody. It's very difficult to manage. Tessa, right? I can read the question from. Actually, Michael, do you want to read the question? It'll probably be better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've already asked, haven't received a reply, read the FCDO position discouraging business with the West Bank as a she called against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine aimed at the Russian state or the Russian people. Is the boycott that the board has called for against production lines that draw on Uyghur labour aimed against Chinese people or against Chinese government for actions is perpetuating? We can't have our cake and eat it too. We can't call for sanctions against states who are breaking international law while supporting a bill that will prevent such sanctions, which is being enacted in the name of the British Jewish community.
Thank you. Tessa is Tessa, just for the record, Tessa Milligan and her constituency is Yachad. I think I need to make it clear with the war in Ukraine, this isn't comparable. We have supported the government, and that's absolutely right that we do so. In the board's questions to the deputies that you've got back, there have been various questions about BDS, and I think an extensive answer has been given to the reply to Amos Schonfield. And I don't think that the question is putting equivalence here. It's a false equivalent, and we all know, and we need to make it absolutely clear that BDS, the aim of BDS, is the complete and utter destruction of the state of Israel, and this is not a peaceful alternative. It's just another weapon, as I've said, in the continuing war to delegitimize Israel and to make it a pariah state. There is always a better way than boycotts. I've already spoken about the campaign that we have done for the Uyghurs, and I think that the Jewish community should be absolutely proud of that campaign. We were amongst the first faith communities to give that support. And I think that the position, however many times it's asked, the answer with respect is the same that I've given, and I'm totally against any form of BDS. And that's been my consistent response on my part. Thank you. Is there another question in the chat?
Richard Cooper would be good if he answers the question, if he can text his question.
Yeah, if anyone on the chat wants to ask a question, you can't say I want a question, you've got to text it. I'm really so sorry because we just can't hear you. It's really frustrating. We're just looking through to see if there are comments aren't questions. If people think they don't like the answer, I'm really sorry about that. Tessa Milligan, I can only give you with respect the answer.
Richard's question, can we eat Ben and Jerry's ice cream now?
Okay, thank you for humour is always good. Richard Cooper, can we eat Ben and Jerry's ice cream now? Absolutely. Felix Mara, I'll let you read the question.
So it's in the chat. What is your view on Gary Mond's comments on the need of the board to meet with the Home Secretary to discuss flights to Rwanda, published in the Jewish Chronicle on June 23rd?
I think we need to focus on what the board's comments are, because that's what's important. I'm not going to get into any sort of debate with Gary Mond, with the absolute respect. I think the board's position has been clearly put on Rwanda.
It was, to clarify, that question was from Richard Sassoon. Just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Lawrence Jacobson, given the paucity of debate at the last plenary, are you satisfied that you have a mandate to make representations to the government on Rwanda?
We had an executive meeting to discuss what we were going to do, because at the last plenary meeting there were representations for lots of deputies, and the HO team listened to what deputies had to say, and an executive meeting was held, and a letter asking the Home Secretary to comment on a number of things. I'll just get my notes of the executive report here, was sent. So the letter wanted to raise a number of concerns, including the prescription of certain terror organisations in the UK, anti-Semitism in general, and specifically the anti-Semitic incident in Oxford Street last November, and the government's Rwanda policy concerning refugees. So a number of issues were raised, and the executive met to consider this following representations from deputies. So yes, I do consider that there was an appropriate mandate, and we carried out the appropriate procedures of consultation and discussion. Thank you.
Question from Janet Tressman from Finchley Progressive Synagogue. Before any further discussion takes place with the CPS, go to the route which is policing and arrest of anti-Semitics. Have you arranged such a meeting with the newly appointed Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, who was a huge success in his role as chief in anti-terrorism? And then the question ends. So that's, I get you. Have we arranged a meeting with the new?
Thank you. We haven't, but we definitely will take on board that suggestion, and I will again discuss that with Michael and Amanda. So thank you for that, Janet. Thank you. And I agree that policing is important, because without evidence, there's not going to be any arrests.
Last question.
Last question.
From Jeremy Schatz from Southgate Progressive Synagogue. Is there any plan or intention to take action regarding the recent decision by Ofcom that the description of a terrorist who murdered a tour guide in Israel as a martyr or shahid at the Al-Hawar TV station was not supportive of terrorism and was a legitimate expression of a Palestinian perspective? To give context, do we believe the same courtesy would be permitted to a broadcaster which applied the same description to the murderers of Lee Rigby, for example?
Thank you. I think I understand the question. At the moment, we're still waiting, just to remind deputies, our submission that's gone to Ofcom in relation to the incident on the bus just before Hanukkah. We can't take on every allegation against the BBC, and we've got to get right to the root of the issues. We will take that one offline to look at it, but we can't keep putting submissions in. We have to get to the root of the problem with the BBC and hope that we will all learn lessons going forward, but we are still awaiting the outcome of our current submission to Ofcom. Thank you. Is that, sorry, Michael?
Yeah, there's one final question
Thank
we'll
you.
take, which is from Vicky Harris. What arrangements are the board making during the period in which a new Prime Minister is being selected, given that meetings with ministers may end up being OTOs if they are replaced?
Yes, Minister, meetings may be OTOs. It may be that the Board of Deputies may not be high on the agenda for campaigning, would be Prime Ministers in the very short time that they've got. Look, we all have to carry on. It's business as usual. Ministers will change. They will be used to it. We just have to carry on representing the community. And if one minister is not there the next, they appear in another department, and when we have a relationship with them, we have to carry on business as usual.
Okay, we can move on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next report that's going to be given will be from Senior Vice President David Mendoza-Wolfson. Over to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will try and be as brief as I can. We've done some good work. It feels like it was only a week or two ago since our last plenary meeting, so it's strange reporting back already, but some of the things we've been working on. Of course, since that last meeting, the Israeli government collapsed, or should I say, there's congratulations to Yair Lapid on becoming the new Prime Minister of Israel. We will be holding an event with BICOM to discuss the election. Those details will go out for deputies to come along to. We are also planning, as I said last time, an Abraham Accords reception. We are hoping to hold this with ELNET, with the Abraham Accords initiative here in the UK, and in partnership with the embassies of Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. So it should be a pretty good event, and we're hoping that will happen in the last quarter of the year. I also spoke last time about our twinning project and movement there. Since then, we have met with the German embassy. The German federal government will be organising with us a small delegation to Germany in order to further explore piloting our sort of synagogue twinning program. And I'm hoping to do this with professional representatives from the various denominations here in the UK to make sure this is a properly cross-denominational project, and hopefully one that we will then be able to expand to other countries. With that, the last thing I'll say before I take questions is I think that the Memorial Scrolls Trust is being voted on today. We do work with them in the international division. I know that a meeting went to see the scrolls recently as well, I think with the communities division, and I wholeheartedly endorse their application, would commend it to you and hope to see it go through with unanimity today. So with that, I will finish up and happy to take any questions you might have. In fact, actually, sorry, I'll say one more thing before I take questions, which is after the last meeting, we did write to Amanda Milling, the Minister for the Middle East, about the Iraq law that was asked about by Sarah Pascoe last time, and we are continuing to explore other things that we can do in order to make sure that this doesn't become something that's just dropped or seen as business as usual. It's absolutely vital that anti-Semitism, legislated anti-Semitism by any country in the world is right at the top of our agenda, and we will be continuing to campaign on it. And with that, I will take questions. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Michael will read any questions online for you.
Jerry?
Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue. Sorry to do a third intervention. Just to inquire, when the board is notified, and I sometimes do notify the board, when there are debates coming up in both the House of Commons and the House of Lords concerning Jewish matters and Israel and matters associated with anti-Semitism as well, what procedures do you have in your division or amongst your staff to alert deputies when you've been given prior notice so that deputies can be told to ask their MPs to go along to the debate, participate, or at least show support for those MPs, some of them quite brave, who stand up on our behalf. Is there any facility? If not, can you introduce one? Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. There isn't really one, and I think it's a great idea and one that we will look to implement in whatever way is sort of deemed most appropriate and effective. So thank you very much for that intervention.
Yeah.
Please.
Question from Lawrence Julius, or comment. I thought the Simon Wiesenthal Centre had issues with BBC Arabic. Adam of the board staff is aware of issues here. That's a comment, thank you. Do you want to respond to that?
I don't see that there's anything I can expand to. I mean, I don't have the facts in front of me, but appreciate any being sent.
Okay. Question from Doria Schmetterling. How will the synagogue twinning project with German shuls, which is the worthy idea, work across denominations, given that most synagogues in Germany are traditional, as far as I know?
So there certainly is also a reform and liberal movement in Germany, and a strong conservative / Masorti movement there as well. You know, this isn't about twinning every synagogue in the UK with a German counterpart. What this is about is making sure that shuls can work with each other, building connections where we can in a formal way, hopefully creating cultural exchanges. I just think it's really, really important that we remember that when we are talking about the things that matter to Jews, we don't just focus on anti-Semitism. We focus on cultural heritage and the work of cultural exchange. And I personally hope that this will also be a way to make people who maybe have thought in recent years that they don't see what their synagogue is bringing to them, or want to get expertise from other synagogues, bring them back into the fold and help them with expertise from synagogues abroad, and then also hopefully other shuls in the UK. So I really hope this will be the ability to create a network of synagogues across denominations. And like I say, Germany, we're hoping will just be a pilot, and we'll be able to expand it to other countries afterwards. And of course, different countries have different denominational makeup. So thank you very much for that, Dory.
Can I just say to deputies on Zoom, because I'm seeing your comments, we know there's a sound problem. We have tried to resolve it. We have not been able to. We all know it worked much better last month. We have to work out why it didn't, why it's not gone right today. We can only apologise, and we will send an explanatory letter to deputies in the next couple of days. If I could ask people not to keep putting it on the text, because it's quite distracting for us to see the really important questions people are coming in. Many, many thanks.
So I understand there are no more questions online. Are there any others from the floor? In that case, thank you all very much, and I will move on.
Thank you. Your report.
Almost good afternoon, deputies. Good morning, deputies. I just want to pick up the comments that have been made earlier about the Ministerial Forum for Freedom of Religion and Belief that took place a few days ago in Westminster. Around 1,000 people came together from international governments, parliamentarians, faith and belief representatives, and civil society, with the aim to urge global action on preventing violations and abuses and protecting and promoting freedom of religion and belief. It was a terrific opportunity for the Board of Deputies to be present, to be seen, to get to know a whole range of different people from across that whole agenda. And as it said in the President's statement, we hosted a fringe event on online hate, where we had an all-woman panel, and it was an outstanding event chaired by Marie van der Zijl. But it was a really good opportunity, as I say, for us to meet and get to know some of the issues, and to meet some people that we would never have met in any other setting. I want to also talk about the fact that, having picked up from the last meeting, the board made a submission to the NUS request for submissions on anti-Semitism in NUS, and that went in earlier this week. I just want to pick up some of the questions that have come through on the Ofcom situation. At this point, Ofcom having made a regulation, should we want to make any effort on this behalf, we would need to look at going to the Competitions Appeal Tribunal. And we will discuss that, but it is something that we will need to discuss between the board and with some of our communal colleagues, but we will have that discussion. The final point I want to make before I take questions is that on the 18th of July at 5:30, we'll be holding our quarterly open meeting for deputies on anti-Semitism. So if anybody wants to join that meeting, 5:30 on the 18th of July, please let me or Joe Crossley know, and we will send you joining instructions. Thank you, deputies. Any questions? Anything in the room? Okie doke. I'm very pleased if I've been clear, and we've covered quite a few points from the division already.
Thank you. We do have technology problems, and I'm only sorry because Andrew Gilbert is presenting the report for the Communities and Education Division, which I hope that we're going to take as read. If we can't restore Andrew, which we'll try again very briefly, it's not satisfactory. I can only apologise to you, but we'll take people's questions and we'll see if we can answer them up here. Otherwise, we'll have to go offline in relation to any questions and ask Andrew to contact you afterwards. So I am very sorry. Can we just have one last try? Does Andrew want to see if he can speak?
Andrew, try again, speaking very slowly, and we'll see if we can make out what you're saying. I'm really sorry.
Hi, can you hear me? Good afternoon, deputies.
No, sorry.
They can hear him on Zoom, and there are more people on Zoom than there are in the room.
He can be heard on Zoom.
Okay, so you just need to be conscious, Andrew, that you can, when you talk, you're more likely to be heard on Zoom. So we'll let you talk, but we apologise here in the room. We might not make you out
Turn the sound on your laptop.
so well.
Okay, so the only thing I want to draw attention to were points 7, 8 and 9 of our report, where you, sorry, I particularly want to, the new work that's being done by Brian Bloom, Ariel Symbol and Toby Coonan on youth and on Jewish community and HM forces. And I would like to put our report to the meeting on that basis. If there are any questions, I'm very happy to take them in chat.
Andrew, do you want to just give us the last 30 seconds again? I think we figured out a workaround.
Okay. All I was alerting you to was the report in which you will see that there's new work going on in the division around Jewish community and HM forces, led by Louis Trupp and Brian Bloom, which is excellent report, and also work that's going on the youth working group between Ariel Symbol and Toby Coonan. And I just wanted to focus deputies on that, those two areas, particularly that have developed since the last two meetings.
Thank you. If there are questions for Andrew, either in the room or on Zoom, we'll be very happy to take them.
So I can hear you. Have you got a question, Robert? Thank you. If you give your name and constituency, thank
Robert
you.
Stone, Finchley Reform Synagogue. I just thought it would be nice to inform Andrew that we actually could hear him in the room this time.
Thank you. Any other questions in the room? Are there any questions on chat, Michael?
Not at the moment.
Thank
you. Apologies again. We'll do the best that we can.
There's a comment from Jonathan Brody, very nice comments. He attended the Refugee Week event at Mill Hill Synagogue, including an address from Edwin, and wish to say that it was excellent.
Thank you. If anyone's got any more questions, I'm sure Andrew will be able to take that offline. And thanks again to Andrew Gilbert. Ben Crown, can you please present your report, please?
Thank you, Marie. Good morning, everyone. Deputies have my report. As with everyone else, there's only been 3 weeks since the last meeting, so there's not that much new news. I just want to highlight one point in particular, which is in the report, which is a strong performance, the common contribution year to date. CC is our largest source of funding. It guarantees our financial stability and the delivery of our many projects and activities. Even more importantly, it's a vital demonstration of our representative nature the board is funded, not just by a few philanthropists, but by the thousands and tens of thousands of individual British Jews who make contributions. So I'm really glad, it's really great to see the CC holding up so well ahead of budget. And we're all really appreciative to the many deputies who promoted the work of the board and the collection of CC in their communities. We do have a range of resources to support deputies in this respect. I just want to draw people's attention, particularly to the email that came around from Lauren and the board's community engagement team this week on deputies best practice about some of the ways to do that. So again, we're very grateful, and please, as we keep up the good work, so too please, if you could all keep up the good work. Just to pick up also Jerry's question from earlier, I think as everyone knows, under standing orders, we have 8 plenary meetings a year. The 2022 dates were circulated about this time last year before the summer recess. That's the commitment which has been communicated to deputies and which people planned around. I'm not sure it's fair or reasonable for us to add extra dates to deputies on short notice for 2022. What I will say is in terms of 2023, the executives meeting on Tuesday, we've got a draft list of dates there. We'll take another look at them to make sure they're spread out as evenly as possible, given the timings of festivals and other communal commitments. We do generally try and hit, as I think many people know, the 3rd Sunday of each month, Yom Tov permitting. So sometimes it moves back and forward a week, like this one has. But sort of in general, we we'll try and smooth them out as much as we can, cognizant of the fact that many people are going to be away in August, many people are going to be away towards the end of December, Pesach, Chagim, and so forth. So we'll do the best we can. And of course, there are so many other board meetings which people can attend outside plenaries as well. I will take other questions if there are other questions. Peter, please.
Hi, Peter Strauss, Belsize Square Synagogue. In your report, you say that there's been an unbudgeted spend of circa £40,000 in relation to the BBC and Ofcom. If, as Amanda says, the board potentially takes this further with the Competitions Authority, what will the likely spend be on that, and will it be in the same region of £40,000 as with Ofcom? Thank you.
Yes, I mean, asking me or anyone to speculate on what sort of legal costs might be for a process like that is unclear. Certainly, we'll see what comes back from Ofcom. We'll get a sense of where the issues are, of how much work is needed. This is not something which we are going to fight forever and ever with every penny we've got, but it is something which is important to us, important to the community, and which we will pursue in a reasonably cost-efficient manner. Obviously, a lot of the work that was done up front was in terms of gathering documentation, in terms of making argumentation, the timeline, the supporting evidence. I'm sure a lot of that would be able to be rolled over into a further process without needing to be redone again. But we'll get a quote and we'll see where we are as and when we have clarity on that. Are there any questions online?
No, there's nothing online.
Carol, yeah.
Carol Abrahams, Catford and Bromley Synagogue. Hi, Ben. A few years ago, I asked this question, and in fact, it was replied positively. When there is a long gap between meetings as there will be between this one and the September, and again between September and November. Please, can we have the minutes as soon as they are written, even though they might be in draft format? It's simply so that we have an aide memoir when reporting back to our constituencies. This was being done. There's been a lot of change of staff, and I just wanted to make sure that it was going to continue.
No, for sure. That's a very reasonable, very reasonable request. It's good practice. I think I can commit to doing it. I should also say, if deputies do have comments on the minutes, it is always more time effective to put them in writing to us in advance of the meeting, as opposed to coming to the meeting and then at that point saying, well, I have a question on X, just in terms of, trying to efficiently process these things. Are there any other questions online? Are there any questions online? No, Jerry.
Again, apologies, Jerry Lewis, Hampstead Synagogue. First of all, following up the question that the gentleman over there asked, how much did the research into the recordings issue, BBC Oxford Street, cost? Can we be told at least how much that issue was? Have we asked Ofcom or the BBC to refund us for those costs? Second of all, the Constitution says at least 8 meetings, not 8 meetings. And with all due respect, the gaps between the board meetings are far too long. We used to have 10 meetings a year. It was cut back unnecessarily to save money. The amounts of money involved in having a meeting here are far less than we used to have at the BMA. And seeing the presidents non-stop saying, we haven't got enough time, we've got to fit things in, etc., that would be alleviated if we have a couple more meetings so that more deputies, instead of me, can contribute to the board. And that would be far better for everybody else. So I'm going to ask you, just to remind you, first of all, last session, we actually had an extra meeting to do the Constitution in December. So there can be meetings fitted in. That's not a problem. It's just a matter of willingness by the HOs and staff. Finally, I asked you last time about the budgets, and I didn't get a very satisfactory reply. Other deputies came up to me and said the same thing. We're sitting on divisions. We don't know what the budget is for our division. We heard your reply that said it's specific to what is put in, but we want to know, can we, and not the HOs, in the divisions actually have a say on how much we are spending in each division and not just leave it to the F&O and the HOs. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. There's a few things there, so I will try and run through them in order, and I'm sure you'll remind me if I've missed anything. First of all, as I think I said, these dates have been communicated for deputies for a year. I'm happy to, I'm happy to, when we go to the exec next week, have a conversation about, well, should we fit an extra meeting in 2023? Is there interest, there's demand for that? We have had a summer meeting before. We have, I think, usually we do skip August. Like I said, on the other hand, deputies have been asked to make a specific time commitment. We do give these meetings, timings out up to 12 or 18 months in advance because people make plans around them. If there's a pressing issue, I'm sure we can fit an extra meeting. But like I said, I'm not sure it's it's sort of reasonable just to say, well, we've got some spare time, let's fit an extra meeting and require deputies to attend, or if they don't, that's their tough luck. So I think we'll look at the calendar for 2023 and see how many meetings we can sort of reasonably fit in and what's gone on. With regard to the cost of the event, I mean, on the one hand, this this setup does cost us a little bit less than we're paying at the BMA, but I would imagine after this meeting we're going to be having a conversation about the quality of the sound here. So I don't want to commit going forwards and say, well, it will definitely be paying less. You asked about the costs of the video work for the Oxford Street video. The cost is proprietary. That's information, so I can't share. But we have asked the BBC to to pay. We even before we made a complaint to Ofcom, we said, and we would expect if the complaint's upheld that you will pay. Yeah, like I said, the cost is proprietary, and it was a direct contract with professional services company for a specific piece of work. So I'm not sure I can just sort of share the information. We did get a reasonably competitive quote for the work that was done.
Budgets.
Yeah, in terms of budgets, as you very eloquently pointed out last time, in 47 years, the board has never done divisional budgets. That's not how the board spends its money. That's not how the board allocates its money. Most of the board's money is spent on the professional team. Professional team is then sort of spread across divisions. Most of the rest of the money is spent on sort of, I won't say overheads, but certainly costs which are spread across the work and main divisions, comms, our office, insurance, all these bits and pieces. We just don't budget or think, if you see the management accounts, Joe, as you saw from HO for many years, they're broken down by advocacy, they're broken down by all these different categories. They don't align with divisions. Obviously, individual divisions have individual projects, and those are sort of budgeted for by the HOs in consultation with the professional staff. I should remind people also that the spending for the most of our spend is through the charity, and deputies of course represent the unincorporated association. So there is kind of a limit on the extent to which sort of the one flows across the other. So I'm sure you're not wildly satisfied with that answer, but my understanding is you've been asking the same question for 47 years, and 16, and I'm merely the 16th treasurer to give you the same set of answers. So I'm sorry, I can't do any better than that. Flora Franks online, and then Robert Stern. Oh, and you asked about the timing of the meeting. I should say, by the way, that we're running 20 minutes ahead on this meeting. So we'll sort of see how we go. I'm very happy to keep taking questions, but we may want to move on to other things. Flora, please. I think we can let's give another try online. Can we try with that setup? Flora, just go for it on video and we'll see what happens.
She's on mute.
Okay. I actually, so shall I give the question now, or can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it, Flora.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you particularly, Ben, because my question is addressed to you. I'm delighted to hear about the communal levy being, sort of forthcoming. But can I ask you, we haven't had a dinner, whether we should or we shouldn't, that's not the question. The question is, how do we make up the shortfall? We raise an awful lot of money every year, and for the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't had a dinner. So I'm interested to know how we've raised the money. How have we made up the shortfall?
Yes, well, we've got a few different sort of projects ongoing. I would put Michael Ziff on the spot as I often do, but he is on this occasion in Israel at Maccabea. There's a high net worth individuals program which we're looking to increase the rollout of this year. Obviously, there's we always the board does get legacies, and we're looking to do a proper sort of structured legacies campaign going forwards. Although we've not done a dinner for the last couple of years, we have of course invested the funds which we've raised at previous dinners, of course realised on the sale of the building, which has generated sort of capital returns going forwards. And as I mentioned in my report, I'm not sure we can quite confirm the date arrangements right now. We are looking after the Chagim to do a fundraising reception and a dinner-esque event, but sort of reconfigured for this sort of post-COVID, post-big dinner era, which we hope will also help in that regard. So we've got a few different things going on. Obviously, everyone's sort of help and support is greatly appreciated in bringing these things to fruition. Robert, I believe, had a question.
Robert Stone, Finch Reform Synagogue. I'd like to begin with a confession. There is a move in the FNO to have more clarity on how we use our resources and staff time, because the staff time is a major thing. I had promised to work with the staff to make that easier and clarify it, because it's my field, and I've just been too busy. So I apologize, and I promise to do it. Secondly, I'd like to take up a point made by Paul Edlin in the chat a procedural point, which is we have just spent 8 minutes on the 5th question by the same deputy. Is this really the way we need to run our meetings?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I don't think the mic's quite caught that, and I think that's probably for the best. Just to pick up, Robert, your first question. I think, as I said, that feeds in exactly with what I was saying to your honoured colleague on the other side of the room beforehand. That our primary cost is staff, and the focus for allocation is sort of where are the staff spending their time, how are those spread across divisions and so forth, rather than trying to sort of do an artificial exercise of, oh, well, what's the cash allocation of X? In terms of, I think we're very pleased to have these meetings. We're very pleased to have, I think the hybrid setup. I don't know quite how many people are online, but certainly online meetings and hybrid meetings have increased. I think the number of people who are able to attend these meetings. We're working with things like the new deputy speaking program to encourage more deputies to feel comfortable speaking and so forth. Obviously, there are some deputies who have more questions than others, sometimes because they have, sort of extensive experience of the board's work over many years, and we're grateful for all of them. I can only encourage as many deputies as possible to ask questions, to engage with our work, and go from there. There is, I should also point you that there is, of course, an item in the standing orders on repeat questions as well, but I don't feel that we need to, go around waving our copies of the Constitution when we're all friends together and we've got some time here. Anyone else online? Jonathan Cole, please.
Jonathan Brody.
Jonathan Brody, even better.
My mistake.
Sorry, Jonathan Cole. Jonathan.
Yes, excuse me. Ben, it's sort of a follow-up to what Jerry asked, but it does seem to me that one of the issues with the number of plenaries that we have is that we do things during them that really don't need to necessarily be done during them, but time could be better used. Particularly, it's the 21st century, so that this maybe should be something like an online portal so we can ask HOs questions at any time and get answers that are published so it's visible to all deputies, that we don't need to take time up from meetings, so we can have daily interaction with the board if we want, without having to do it 10 times a year, 8 times a year, however frequently it is, because the only place we can do it is at meetings.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think that's a very reasonable point. Obviously, we do have questions to the president. The HOs are, I'm not going to promise, on behalf of all the HOs, they're all going to be available daily for questions, but certainly, in my experience, always very happy to engage with deputies to talk about our work and so forth. I think pretty much every day or most days, I do something along those lines. I'm sure the other HOs who are more policy oriented do the same sorts of things. Like I said, we've got an exec meeting this week before, so we also break up for the summer recess. So I think I'm happy to sort of take this point that's been raised a couple of places, put it on the agenda and discuss, what else we can do going forwards to sort of improve that. Enhance, I'm told, not improve.
Thank you. Deputies, there is one matter that unfortunately I have to deal with. I'm not going to repeat to the meeting the swear words that were picked up that were used to Robert Stone, Jerry, and the chair of the Constitution Committee has got them written down. I don't know if Robert Stone could hear from that end of the room, but I hope you will reflect and apologise for that language, because we can't, whatever our differences, I know how many differences we all have, but that sort of language about another deputy doesn't show respect. I'm not sure that Robert Stone actually heard it. I certainly heard it. If you want to see the chair of the Constitution Committee, he will show you what was written down, and I hope that Jerry will apologise to you afterwards.
With due respect, it wasn't aimed at Robert Stone at all. So
I'm sorry, Jerry, it was aimed at me. I'm not sure that's any better.
It wasn't aimed at you either. And it's not a swear word. If you check her skin, May, it is not a swear word.
I apologise if it was wrongly said to aim at you, Robert. I apologise for that. But the language, we will clarify who it was aimed at. please go and see the chair of the Constitution Committee, Joey. He will show you what you said, and I hope that before the end of the meeting, you will apologise to whoever it was aimed at, because as Ben has said, whoever it was aimed at doesn't make any difference. Sorry, the chair of the Constitution Committee is
under the points of order procedure, Madam Chair. It is perfectly acceptable for me to reject to an attack on a deputy. I was attacked as a deputy, not by name, but by implication, and I reacted to it. Thank you.
I'm not going to read out the swear words that you use to a deputy that we will ascertain. If you'd like to go and see the chair of the Constitution Committee, he will show you what was said, and I hope that you will
It would be better if
apologise
it was aimed at me, Madam President, because I have a very thick skin.
by the end of the meeting. Because you do know that under the Constitution, we could have a discussion and we can take a vote on what action should be taken. That is provided for, and I will now ask the chair of the Constitution Committee to look at the relevant section. So I hope you will go and speak to him first to look at what you said, and that we won't have to take time to deal with that issue. Thank you.
Madam President, if I may, the language that was used, and I'm not going to repeat it, was entirely inappropriate. It doesn't matter in my judgment who it was aimed at. This is a public meeting. It's an important public meeting, and language of that sort should not be used. And I hope that Jerry Lewis will apologise publicly for using it. The only thing I can do is apologise for a word.
Sorry, should we move on with the agenda?
Yeah. We'll move on with the agenda.
Is he going to apologise?
I'm going to speak to the chair of the Constitution Committee once the new speakers are speaking, and I will speak to him because I haven't got the Constitution to hand, but I know that action can be taken in the course of the meeting and it can be put to a vote. So I'm very sorry to have to do this. Could we? What we'll proceed to first, I should do that when the new speakers are speaking, but could Colin Grayson please now talk to us about the vote that will be needed for the Memorial Scrolls Trust to be a member of the board and to appoint the deputy. Over to you, Colin.
Good morning again, Madam President. I drafted with Tony Leifer this application, which you have. The first paragraph sets out from the Trust's own published documents what it does. Thereafter, we've taken information from other public documents on the Charity Commission website and the annual report. We're satisfied, that's myself and Tony Leifer, the joint authors of this document, that the Memorial Scrolls Trust is beneficial to the community under the Constitution. Organisations of that sort, as we've said, require a 2/3 majority. It is right that I draw your attention to the paragraph 6 of the recommendation document in relation to Jonathan Cole. I haven't asked Jonathan to approve that wording, but he hasn't come back to me and said he doesn't approve it, so I'm going to assume that he does. We thought that it was right to include that in the interests of transparency. We have no hesitation in recommending this. If there are questions about the organisation, I will try to answer any legal questions. If it's about the organisation itself, I think Jonathan's present at this meeting. He will probably, because he's treasurer, be more able to answer it than I can. Otherwise, I will leave it to a vote.
Thank you. So we're going to have a vote online and we're going to have a vote in the room. For those of you in the room, you've all got a card with which to vote, and the chair of the Constitution Committee will signal to me when I can ask. If there isn't anyone, I know there were 1 or 2 people that didn't have their.
Okay, hi deputies. I'm going to be running the vote online. So we're going to do this by raising your virtual hand, which can be done if you click on reactions and then raise hand. So we're going to put a clock on. So if you vote in favour of the motion to accept the Memorial Scrolls Trust, please raise your virtual hand now. And we're going to put a timer on the screen for 1 minute. And at the end of the minute, I will be taking note of the results. So that's in favour of the motion. Could we put the motion also on the screen? Okay, we can't have the motion on the screen, but this is in favour for the Memorial Scrolls Trust to become affiliated to the board. We'll just wait for the minutes and then we will take a screenshot of the results. If you could please raise your virtual hand rather than the clap emoji, that would be helpful. Thank you. Thank you. So 10 more seconds and then we will finish this vote. Okay, thank you. If everyone could lower their hand now. We'll just wait till it's back at 0. Please lower your hands. There's 6 people that have their hands up. If you could just lower them. Okay, yeah, we're just going to get the hands lowered. Okay, we're now going to do so. If you are voting against the motion for the Memorial Scrolls Trust to not join the board, please raise your hand if you are against the resolution, and we'll put a timer on for 1 minute again. If you are attending the plenary in person and you've joined on Zoom, then your vote will not be counted on Zoom. So please make sure you're only voting once. Okay, so we'll just wait for this timer and then we'll close the vote. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay, thank you. We'll now rejoin the plenary in person. Thank you.
Coordinator. Thank you. And when you come to speak, can you please give your name and your constituency? So thank you. So Debbie, you're our first to go. Thank you.
Dear Madam President, dear deputies, my name is David Akrish. I'm a deputy of Garnet Hill Synagogue from Glasgow. I became a deputy 4 months ago to represent my community. I'm 34 years old and I'm originally from Istanbul. I moved to Scotland 5 years ago and became a member of Garnet Hill Synagogue. My professional career brought me to the UK as an expat, and I decided to continue my professional career and my life in the UK. I'm a mining and mineral engineer leading an international sales team in mining and construction business areas. At the beginning of this year, Garnet Hill's honorary president, Bernard Goodman, advised me that Garnet Hill would be rejoining the Board of Deputies and asked me if I would consider being a candidate. And then I stood up and my community elected me as a deputy, and I'm really honored for that. We are an independent Orthodox synagogue and have 170 members. Garnet Hill Synagogue has intermittently been a part of Board of Deputies over 100 years. And next year, our congregation will be celebrating its 200th anniversary. and our synagogue is over 100 and just over 140 years old, and is situated in an A-listed building in a beautiful architecture. So I encourage everybody to pay a visit when you have a chance. So we hold a bronze badge of Eco Synagogue program, and our building is also home to Scottish Jewish Archive Center and Holocaust Memorial. I stood for this position to be the bridge between my community and the board, and share my ideas and support about the current and upcoming topics. Thank you for listening me.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Thank you. William. Can you put your microphone on so we can hear you? And you've got 3 minutes.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
My name's William Baginski. My constituency is the Association of Jewish Refugees. And I just repeat first, thank you for the opportunity to take part in the new Deputies speech programme. The AJR last year celebrated its 80th birthday, having been set up in 1941 by refugees from Germany and Austria as a self-help organisation for refugees from Nazi-occupied countries. Last year, the AJR was represented for the first time at the Board of Deputies, and I'm very pleased to be here as its first deputy. In my working life, I started out as an English teacher in Harlesden in London Borough of Brent, and continued to work in secondary schools in a number of roles for many years, ultimately as a pastoral deputy head teacher, which included responsibility for child protection. It eventually led on to a job at the NSPCC as head of child protection, publishing and film, a team that developed learning resources with and for professionals across agencies, health, education, the police, children's social care, and so on safeguarding issues, safeguarding children issues, that is, such as parental substance misuse, safeguarding deaf and disabled children, child protection conferences, and so on. I now work as a freelance, writing, for example, e-learning courses, editing university textbooks and other non-fiction books. I'm also associate editor with the Journal of the Association of Child Protection Professionals, Child Abuse Review. The work that the AJR does has a personal resonance for me because both my parents were refugees, my mother from Austria in 1938 and my father from Germany in 1939. And over the years, its role, not surprisingly, has changed from one of political campaigning that was important at the beginning. Now its top priority is the social care and welfare of the first generation, refugees and survivors, and to help bring the services it provides, such as the home care scheme, to the notice of those able to benefit from them via the Board of Deputies is something that I hope will result from the AJR's involvement. I can see that I'm rapidly running out of time, and one thing that I wanted to say was that I found my first year as deputy really interesting, and not least because of the breadth of the activity of the board. And I hesitate to say it, but it was just a few hiccups, the skillful management of online and now hybrid meetings when so many people are involved. I'm particularly interested in the board's work in relation to countries in Eastern Europe and in challenging anti-Semitism, both abroad and closer to home.
Thank you. Thank you. Vicky Hart.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to unmute myself. Hopefully you can hear me now. Thank you very much. My name is Vicky Hart. I'm the first deputy for Kisharon, and I'm just so honoured to be here. I've also got COVID at the moment, so might not be as sharp, which is why I'm not there in person. A little bit of background about me. Born in London, grew up in Leeds, then we moved to Manchester, went to Jewish schools, including Carmel for a while, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. Now live in South London. I'm a member of Bromley Reform Synagogue. I'm on the board there. My professional background is that I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker for over 20 years, working in adult services. So it's quite interesting following on from the previous. So my expertise is around adult safeguarding. I've worked in specialist dementia services, mental health services, forensic services. I was at the Care Quality Commission for 7 years as an inspector of mental health, learning disabilities and substance misuse. And I now work at Social Work England, which is the regulator for social work, where I'm regional engagement lead for London. I've been involved in providing training to social workers and social work students around anti-Semitism and around where anti-Semitism fits into the anti-racism training. I've also helped set up the Jewish networks for the NHS and a very new social work Jewish network. I'm on the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Steering Group for the British Association of Social Workers. And I want to talk about Kisharon, obviously, hopefully with a bit of time. Kisharon, if you don't know, it's a charity for children and adults with complex and profound learning disabilities. We're based in London. You may know that Kisharon means talent, and we believe that everyone has talent to be nurtured. And everyone has something to give back to the community. Kisharon is really proud to be a Jewish organisation, and our Jewish values run really deep through us. And so that's why it's particularly a privilege to be here representing the organisation among the British Jewish community. We've recently just received our 3rd outstanding for Ofsted for our nursery. So we've got a nursery school, supported accommodation, employment opportunities, day opportunities, rushing through it. Recently produced an easy read Siddur, and we really want to focus on more support and access we can give to people with learning disabilities within the Jewish community, not just through in religious settings, but in all settings, and would ask all of you to look at what we can do to make things more accessible, including work opportunities. I know I'm rushing a bit, but finally, I just hope some of my experience can be useful. Real privilege to be here. Talked very quickly, going to turn my camera off so I can cough for a bit now, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done to all the speakers. Next up is Dan Kyle. Thank you. Over to you, Dan.
Hello, I'm hoping you can all hear me. Hi everyone, my name is Dan Kyle and I am the newest deputy for Manchester Reform Synagogue, also known as Jackson's Row, but we will see how long we are still at Jackson's Row. I am originally from deepest, darkest Cumbria, and I moved to Manchester in 2008 for uni, where I studied Hebrew, and bar my year abroad and a very, very brief attempt at Aliyah, I have been here ever since. As of last week, I am also the new membership manager for Liberal Judaism, so I apologise to anyone whose inboxes I've filled already. The main reason that I'm here, the main reason that I put myself forward as a deputy is because I didn't have a great time through lockdown. And if I'm honest, my community were really great for me and looked after me an awful amount. So it seemed only the right thing to do to kind of put myself forward when the opportunity arose. And with that kind of attitude of why the hell not, I've also somehow ended up convening the Climate Action Work Group and standing for election twice in the last 2 years, which was mildly terrifying, but very fun at the same time. I'm delighted to be here for Manchester Reform, particularly while it goes through so many changes with a definite move of location and potential mergers, but we shall see. And I kind of want to finish on one very last short story that's come up since I've joined the boards. I stood for the international division last year and sent my bio out to many people that mentioned that I was from West Cumbria. And one of the people that got back to me, my grandparents ran a pub in the 70s in a tiny, tiny village that's remote even by Cumbrian standards. And it so happens that that very same pub was taken over a few years later by Sheila Gowolb, which was a lovely coincidence. So even being so far removed from the main Jewish communities, it is great to see that 6 degrees of separation still somehow links us all. Thank you very much for listening to me waffle for the last 2 minutes. And I'm very much looking forward to meet you all in person. Thank you and Shavua Tov.
Thank you. Can I thank all of the new deputies who have spoken? It's really wonderful to have you as part of the board family, and thank you so much for all of you and your contributions. Thank you. Jerry, could I just come back to you to ask you, please? I'm going to go back to the chairman of the Constitution Committee. Are there any further developments?
Firstly, thank you for promoting me, but I'm actually not the chairman. Tony Leafer is. I'm
So,
here in his place today.
in his place today.
Tony would only want me to say that. I've had a discussion with Jerry Lewis. He is concerned about the comments that were made about his participation in this meeting. What I have said to him about that is that I will look at the recording with my colleagues and assess whether the comments that were made about him breach any of the procedures and processes of the board. And if so, we will take appropriate steps. On that basis, I think Jerry is willing to speak now to this meeting.
Thank you. And can I say, obviously, that is entirely appropriate if there's any bad conduct towards Jerry. But my point is, even if there is bad conduct, the sort of language that was used is inappropriate. Can I ask you if you're prepared to withdraw that language and apologise for the language?
I will withdraw the word, and I will apologise to deputies for using the word, but may I ask you in future, Madam President, when you hear a personal attack on a deputy, to observe the points of order regulations, which say if there is a personal attack on a deputy, I'm entitled to raise a point of order. Thank you.
I'm really sorry. I really feel you actually swore at this person, and I'm not going to say what the language is.
It is not a swear word in Erskine
It
Bay.
is a swear. You swore, and you are refusing. Just you should be. You've been a deputy for a long time. Feel that you can say that you're sorry for. I don't even want to repeat the words. It's too undignified. But the chair of the Constitution Committee have them. So I just want to be clear that you're refusing to apologise in a public meeting for those.
I did not refuse. I apologise. You don't listen, but you're becoming not fair. That's not reasonable.
Okay, so you are apologising for the words that you use. Okay, thank you. But I hope that we'd never have to be in this place again. I hope that even if we've got our differences, it's how we manage those differences that are always going to be important. And I realise everybody's heart is in the right place, and the recording will be looked at to see what was said to Jerry. So that's fair.
Madam President, please remember what the Chief Rabbi said this morning. Thank you.
Jerry, I think you have said, perhaps with respect, quite enough for today. I think we should all remember, and there's no excuse for that sort of language. Moving on, can I announce the vote, please? I'm delighted to say for the Memorial Skull Trust, there was 100% of those voting, and there were no votes again. I'm told that 79 people voted yes, and there were no no's. So congratulations to the Memorial Scrolls Trust, and we very much look forward to welcoming them as members of the board. So thank you very, very much, everybody else. Thank you. Thank you. The date of the next meeting is going to be the 18th of September. This will be a hybrid meeting. We are going to do all we can to make sure that we sort out the technology failures. So I do apologise, especially to you online and to deputies in the room. So I am very, very sorry, and we will do our best. If anyone feels they had any questions which weren't answered, we're very happy to take that offline. So we're very much looking forward to the next meeting. And thank you, deputies, for all of your time today. Thank you and have a very lovely afternoon. Thank you.